Today, the Dorks talk to Amanda Comunale about some of the realities and challenges facing both manufacturers and contractors in the age of digital construction, and how her experience across the industry is helping build strategy in her new position at ASC-Engineered Products. This is her second time appearing on the show, and it's always a good discussion, so sit back and enjoy this episode as we talk about the challenges of manufacturing reality.
And we're live. That's right. Episode 74, Manufacturing Reality, with someone you might recognize, may have been here before, Amanda Comunale. And that's right. The smooth sounds of the intro are back. I'm back. I get to do one. I know y'all missed me. I mean, you really did. Everybody did. Let's be honest about it. Everybody missed me. I missed you, though. I mean, really, it's not you. It's me. I missed you guys. I missed the show. It's been actually kind of fun to listen in to the fun stuff going on while I was on the road. But I'm excited, man. I'm so excited to be back with the Dorks and just have some fun. So, and I'm going to get this started myself with a little, because race completed.
Yeah,
that's
congrats,
right.
By the way.
Yeah. Congratulations. Well done.
Ironman number 5 in the books. You're not going to have to hear about my Zip Fizz or my Element, hint sponsor. Maybe it's Flaviar time, but this one is going to be hard to see unless I put my hand behind it there.
Disjointed.
This is a special decanter provided by the CPC for being the MC last year. It is a disjointed, and in this is a very rare High West Rendezvous Rye.
Right on.
That Nathan cannot be outdone. Best, some of the best swag on the planet. You can't see this, but it's a big S and it says sample on it. So get it? Get it? So nobody missed me. Everybody just turned it off and went.
Can we cancel this podcast?
At least I'm particularly long-winded. So 30-second fast forwards work for you guys.
That's right.
All right, Trent, you got to take over then. I'm going to pass it to you, my friend. How are you, man?
Doing well, man. Glad to be back here with you, and glad to see Amanda on the other end as well. I'm just drinking it's a Coca-Cola Zero, so getting my caffeine and aspartame, so on ice, and so pretty boring, but I'll let you guys take care of the exciting drinks. Plus, there's no way I was going to top that intro anyway, so Jonathan, what about you? I saw you with something a little more.
It's
exciting.
Christmas, man. So Christmas is, for me, I'm Italian. Christmas is port. I did a Sandman, which isn't an expensive port, and biscotti. So you make the biscotti, which is like a almond anise flavored biscuit cookie, and you dip that in your port. And it's like, that's Christmas for my family. Like, my family does pizzelles and everything smells like almonds when we're making those, and we, get out the port and dip our cookies in wine. Just probably a little odd.
Marsh, an Italian name? Is that a...
No, I'm a Dormio. So Dormio is the Italian name. Marsh is the other side of the family. How about you, Miss
your own port?
Yeah, right.
No, I have never made port. I made wine, but never made port.
Just so you guys know, next podcast, he's going to have said, well, in my free time between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., I decided to make some port.
Yeah.
No, first he's going to fell all the trees and hand hew all wooden barrels. And
they're specially cast, right? That's the only way you can do it. And
you have to do it right.
It's not the next podcast. It's 2 podcasts, Amanda, because it needs 4 weeks.
Oh, it needs
because I have to age this correctly. You can't rush. There's certain things the Marsh can rush. This is not one.
It's going to just be the progression.
Yes, we digress.
We're off to a great start here.
This is awesome.
Travis Boss, what are you drinking, man?
Well, I went up to Wisconsin this last weekend and got a local favorite up there that a lot of people, it's starting to get out more, but some New Glarus Brewing. This one's their Staghorn. It's their Oktoberfest, but I got the sampler pack, so I do have a Spotted Cow for later. And it's kind of funny. Well, I think it was right about the time that we were up there, it was revealed they put out a map of the 50 drunkest counties and 41 of them were in Wisconsin. So congratulations, all of our Wisconsinites out there.
So we have to tell them that they need to learn how to
Foam finger
lie.
number one, baby. Foam finger number one. We got it.
I used to have a T-shirt from one of the beer festivals I went up there that said "Drink Wisconsinably," out drinking every other state since 1848 or whatever they have. So they own it. It's pretty funny. But yeah, so if you happen to be wandering through Wisconsin, particularly the middle part of the state, New Glarus Brewing is one of my favorite beers. So Amanda, why don't you go ahead and reintroduce yourself, and you've got a fancy drink for us.
I mean, I do. So I have a beautiful cup of tea that I stole the tea bag from the United Lounge. So Earl Grey, it's 5 o'clock. It's cold in Chicago. Need something warm to drink. So I'll have a cocktail later on. I'm still in my beautiful decorated office.
Yes.
I was going to say, are you going for a minimalist look there?
My wife is the one that likes all the stuff. I try to get rid of everything.
She's going for the I got fired last week look. Like
right. It looks more a little bit like just in case. I don't want to get too comfortable.
Exactly.
Just in case, don't want to have to pack up a lot. They only give you a milk crate. I travel light. But if you guys could see right here, there's like a beautiful L-shaped couch and a ficus or a fig or something.
Ficus.
You did not record by the ficus. Are you serious?
That's a shout out to Walker.
There's still a few people leaving, so they would have been like, "Who are these guys that you're talking to right now? And why do I not know them?"
Well, and why are they so strange? And should we virtually escort them out? So
no, they're too cool for school.
So there's a new logo on that mug.
New logo, yeah.
Talk to us about the new logo.
Cool. So I am sitting here from ASC-Engineered Solutions headquarters in Oak Brook, and I joined the team about 8 months ago to work on their digital technology strategy. So really cool. It's ASC. A lot of people aren't familiar; they're more familiar with our brand. So Groove Lock, Smith Cooper, Anvil, Grinnell on the mechanical side, ABZ Sharp. So it's really cool to be at a manufacturer that has a complete portfolio on the mechanical and fire side.
Well, that's awesome. You've bounced around a little bit, but it feels like maybe we found home, huh? This is what drew you to ASC, and it's funny you say that. You say ASC Engineered Solutions, and you go, "Oh, Groove Lock." Things even I know, right? The dork even knows it over here. So,
yeah, I always encourage people to take risks and take those steps. And I've had a lot of opportunity from the construction side, the software side, the services side, and now with 2 of the top manufacturers. And I had the opportunity to consult, and then a role came up, and I love looking at construction from the manufacturing point of view, because I feel like you get the best of all the worlds, and you get to, I don't have to just be on the fire side or just on the mechanical side.
So, I actually had a question for you about your background, because I've worked with you in different places throughout your career, and I actually met you when you were still at Comunale. And one of the things that I noticed as I started to move around is you get a different perspective on construction as you start moving through all of the verticals, or whatever you want to call it. You've been in straight up construction, hands-on, boots on the ground. You've been in manufacturing and bringing them to tech to support that construction. You've been in the startup world. You've been in the BIM, and I'm gonna call it like the BIM and construction coordination collaboration world, and then sort of back to the manufacturing a bit. But as you were moving through all those, I know your roots are in contracting. What were some of the things that you found really surprising at the beginning when you were moving out of contracting and coming into, basically like a different game, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, I think that when people know, so like I'm the daughter of a self-made man that, has a large construction company that believed in putting his kids in the fab shop and sweeping floors and being a project manager. And I loved it. And everyone's like, why would you leave that? Your name's on the wall. And my dad sold to MCOR before I left. I was with, worked for my dad under MCOR for, I think, 7 years and loved it. I don't think I would have left construction unless I had like the family issues with losing my mom and my brother and my aunt and my uncle to cancer. And I just made that step because I needed my dad to be my dad. And I didn't want to compete. So I was like, how can I look at this problem of construction and building things and putting the smart people into the plan and using different methodologies to look at a job site differently. And I love construction. So I jumped over to manufacturing. And I think every step I've made, I furthered my love of sharing data and making things visual and the technology side of that. So as opportunities have come and as life changes, I had an opportunity in the startup world. And, I say working at GTP, I had an MBA and I got an MBA in the startup world. And, really going and looking at the problem completely differently and looking at the customer differently and taking all of that experience that I learned from contracting and manufacturing and putting it into the software and the solution. And at the end of the day, I still think we're all trying to solve the same problem. I think, Marcia, I was telling you that I wrote down a list of issues that if I was in charge when I was like 22, Dad, we'd fix these. And when I left the company 13 years later, we had made leaps and bounds, but at the root, we were still looking at basically that sheet of paper, just from a different perspective and from maybe a more sophisticated point of view. And then I jumped into BIM services and looked, completely different. Like, how do we just help people specifically, and what can we outsource, and how can contractors still feel like they have ownership and they can still have value and input? Then I came back to manufacturing because I love the physical product. And I love the geographic scope that I get from being at a manufacturer versus at some contractors.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, I still don't want to compete against, those people that I didn't leave because I didn't like their business. So I still feel a little bit of that aspect too. So I get to be adjacent. And I have to really thank, everybody on this call has influenced me in some way, shape, or form throughout my career.
Sorry for
that. It's all your guys' fault. It's all your guys' fault.
Oh, whoops.
Everybody can blame you guys. But yeah, no, I think it's knowing that it's okay to take a step and take a move. And I think our industry is very concerned with pulling people in from other industries. It doesn't get excited enough about pulling people in from other industries, because I jumped from contracting to manufacturing, and that first day I was like, what don't I know? It's like, it was scary. And then I realized that what I knew could be applied, but as long as I was open to learning, I could succeed. And I think that's what our industry needs to look at, because as our industry grows and as the need for technology implementation grows, we have to pull people in and have to encourage people to move around a little bit, not just in between contractor to contractor or manufacturer to manufacturer.
I kind of wanted to tease out something that you said there too about being the physical representation and the data. A good friend of ours, Nathan Wood, is passionate about that. It's been something that has been the part of the last couple of his summits. So can you elaborate then what you're doing there? Because I know that we all on the MEP side complain about content and not and wanting more content and manufacturing based content. So dig into that a little bit for us.
Yeah, so I think, there's content. If you take it like on its basic term, do we look at content being like what's in our submittals, like that just bread and butter? Like, what's its middle data? And then we look at content. Is it our BIM content? Is it an ITM? Is it an RFA? Is it a 3D? Whatever. Like, there's so much about content. And then there's, hey, we have a PIM and all of that content that we have. And so, like, what I'm looking at ASC is, how do we give information and usable information to the parties that need it? So to the trade contractors, it's not just, oops, my computer went dead for a second. You know, from the trade contractor, it's making sure, yeah, we have dimensional content, but we also have submittal content, but we also have specification content. So I'm looking to share the content out in the right format at the right time, not just having the contractor come to our website and pull a submittal sheet, or come to our website and you know, pull our Revit content. But, you know, how do you link it all together, make it usable? And I think that's something we all need to,
Right.
what these conversations are best about, Travis, is let's still have that conversation, because before, you know, I worked for the gold standard in manufacturing for content, and then everybody wanted to copy that. But now we're 5-6 years into this conversation, and what we want it differently. The trade contractors and our software partners and our distributor partners all need different content at different time and different levels. And we as a manufacturer have to be part of that solution. You know, it's a true partnership. It's, what do you need? How do you need it? And how can we help each other get to that?
You know, I had a really interesting conversation with a contractor 2 weeks ago, and his comment was, well, John, how do we get to the point where we don't need PDFs at all anymore? And I said, you mean for drawings? And he goes, no, I mean at all.
No.
And I was like, you mean no submittals, no specs, like, let's just kill PDFs. And I was,
BIM content be the submittal or something like that, right?
yeah. Yeah, and he had a good point. It's like, we didn't go paperless; we went to e-paper, and the next step is let's delete the e-paper. But I think that there's so many tricks we have to do there. You mentioned something though that I think is good to mention to our audience, and that was a PIM system. We usually don't get into our acronyms, but can you explain what a PIM system is? Because I think outside of manufacturing, like, until I started working with manufacturing, I had no idea what you were talking about. You know, I thought you were mispronouncing BIM and just didn't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? But it's not that. And I'd love to hear you.
It's pretty information modeling.
It's pretty information modeling. Is what it is. Yeah, for sure. But can you kind of explain that?
It's pink information modeling. So I think so all of our product information has to go in one spot. Like, at the end of the day, manufacturers just don't have all this information in one system. You know, it lives in different departments because we use information differently internally. Supply chain uses one, operations uses another, manufacturing uses another. So a PIM system basically just allows us to put all of our product attributes in one system. So our BIM data, our dimensional data, our code compliance data. It's a system then that we can link that to other systems so that it's connected. So it's a master data management strategy, and PIM is just one solution. So PIM plus BIM.
Yeah.
It really is an enabler. Without it, you're dealing with a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of, you know, possibilities for issues.
Yeah, not to get overly geeky, but like, because you worked at GTP, Trent works at GTP now. They've started building this thing called Lightning. And as I started working with manufacturers, I'm like, oh my gosh, Lightning is an attempt at making a PIM system for a contractor. It really is. It's like, contractors have their own database, but they don't have a way to sort of manage all those digital products. And so they were working on this attribute, or this, they have it, a product called Lightning, where they were kind of making a PIM system for contractors. And when I started seeing that, I'm like, I wonder if some of those larger contractors, the DSIs, the Helm groups, you know, those people ever looked and said, well, why don't we get a PIM? Why don't we start really, really doubling down on how we look at the pieces and parts that build a building? You were in all of those seats. What do you think? Looking back, is it a good fit, or is it something that really just fits the manufacturer?
I think it's interesting. I mean, I think I would say that if I were a contractor, I would want to partner with my manufacturers to get their PIM information, and then where to put it, what that data repository would be. I don't know if it's a PIM is the right spot for it, but they definitely need that information. And as it becomes available, and so like Trimble has a partnership with DDS, and I'm just looking into like, what is DDS? And I think that I'm pretty well versed on what products are out there for distributors and contractors. And then when I saw Trimble, partners with DDS, I was like, wait, I don't remember what DDS is. And oh shoot. And as I talked to Trimble and DDS and found more about it, and like they're the, data repository for distributors and sharing that information. So it's like, who's got the information and who can share it? Yeah. And I think, Marsh, you're much more technical than I am on like where it goes, but some type of contractors do need some type of data repository to know what they use and what they don't use. I think it's like, we've had a lot of conversations on knowing what you use and when you use it, and then how does that help you be more productive? How does that help you? So I love the idea of getting rid of paper, like e-paper. We talk about leaning our fab shops and leaning our warehouses, but so when I ran a VDC group, every Friday, once a month, we had a computer lean time. And, it was like, what documents, you got guys that sell like, it was on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. And you're like, why do you keep that? And then like you move over to a construction cloud or whatever other that calls the product today. And they tell you, don't put dates on your name, on your files, because that's an old system. So long-winded, but I think you need to know what you use your data for and spend some time mapping it out. Like the more it's visual, the more you'll know how to use it. And I think Trent, like at GCP, that's a big thing. It's like people, I don't agree that your data is always your IP. I think your data is something that your IT, which are your people, use. And how you use that separates you.
It's what you do with the data that's the IP. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the PIM system just knowing what we know now, because we've all been out of our trenches, we've been in different, parts of the business now talking about that. And I don't know, at the contractor level, like a PIM system, it might be muddying the water, it might be going too far. I mean, I think the manufacturing partners that Amanda alluded to is probably the better way. Like we have to think about like the joint venture stuff now too is such a big thing, and projects are huge and they're getting complex, and contractors are teaming up to, be more risk adverse. And I think there needs to be a way to still have that open mind, that open operation to be able to work. I mean, if you were so closed off to where that system was yours, Jonathan, right? I guess it needs to be open-ended to a point where I guess like that common language or there needs to be a language that other contractors know, I guess, in what you're doing. So I'm just wondering if we're trying to get too technical at times with some of that stuff.
I'm seeing in the market like 2 or 3 different models for that. I'm seeing the model where you have a manufacturer saying, hey, API over to my PIM system. All right, get my data. And then I see another model like with IDEA where they're saying, hey, listen, we're going to take all the manufacturers and distributors and push together their data, because the manufacturers typically go through a distributor to put out their stuff. And they're saying, hey, listen, we're gonna combine all that into a single language and then offer it to you. So if you're an electrical contractor, you go to you go to where they pull the data together into that lake, and you pull from there rather than from the individual manufacturers. And I just keep thinking about some of these people like Binsky and some of these others that are stepping on the edge of being a manufacturer, and whether or not it's going to get to the point where it's like, okay, well, contractors, why don't we connect your PIM to the PIMs you need information from so that it does the translation for you? Because we are all kind of, we're all kind of special in the way that we deal with our RFAs and other data pieces. We want it our way with our custom data fields. And Trent, the hell that you're living in, obviously right now, is trying to get 50 different databases to say the same thing. But I was just curious. I feel like with your scope, Amanda, you just sat in all those seats, and in the manufacturing seats new to me. So I'm just learning like how they do things, and they produce. How many SKUs were you saying? Like,
I should know that.
Wild guess on how many SKUs, even just in Groove, I think it was like 27 or 47,000 SKUs.
Yeah. Or I think Groove's like 15,000, and Press is like right now.
Press is like 500 or 600. I just did them.
Yeah, like we're just, so it's like one of those things too is like, I think with data, I think at the end of the day, and I preach this, so at the fabrication conference, I sent a picture of me when I hosted the fabrication concert. It should have been a concert.
Oh, that'd be so much better.
That would have been a blast.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like we need like the Milwaukee band, and like, I think who's got in Milwaukee? It's actually in Milwaukee next year.
Yeah.
So J.M. Brennan.
Yes,
So hey, Sean, if you're listening, get the band. But it comes down to partnership. Like I've been preaching partnership since day one of partner with the people that have the data, make sure that the data is consistent. And then like, hey guys, like, oh God, the naming conventions and standards, I don't think we need all that. Like at the end of the day, just like what are the fields people want?
Mm-hmm.
Have it consistent enough. People are really smart out there to know how to map it a little bit, but go out to the source. The source is always the most correct out of anything. And I think we have to get away from this like buy versus build. Like I'll just make it myself because I think it's the most accurate. All you are is making like something for you to change. And Trent, you said something pretty interesting too. Projects like these big projects, where a mechanical is partnering with another mechanical who's partnering with another mechanical, or there's two sprinkler contractors on it. And if you're going to use two systems with walls up, you better hope there's a real wall on that project that you're on the other side of. Because you got to share data. You got to feed to, one Tiger Stop in one shop, one Tiger Stop in another shop, and make sure you can feed those files. At the end of the day, it all comes down like this project's got to get built in the fastest amount of time.
Well, yeah, and that leads you to your point of like, should you really be managing that stuff on your own? Well, if it's off by a little bit, and now you're in a joint venture project, and yours is sending to a Tiger Stop that's got one setting, and the other has a different setting, and because their digital content's just a touch different because they wanted to manage their digital content. Now you're getting really, really, really scary. And those joint ventures, Trent, you're dead right. They're not going away. They're growing in size because the project sizes and the complexity is just growing. Right. So you got to maintain consistency. What I'm interested in, Amanda, is you've got manufacturing background now, right? You had it, BIM, VDC background, actual true contracting background. Like, how are you bringing that all now, come along to ASC? What are you bringing there that you think you can help them service the market a little bit differently and bring new things? Because we did this at CPC. Like, we're asking more of our manufacturers. We have to, because we can't maintain that stuff ourselves anymore. We can't do those things ourselves. So, how are we, and how are you gonna help ASC approach that?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Like, I like to say I've been a customer of Anvil, a customer of Smith Cooper, a customer of North Alabama. I was a competitor, I was a vendor, and a consultant. And I didn't realize that until I was sitting down to interview for a job here, to say, hey, I've bought their major brands. I've used their products, I've competed against their products, and now I'm here trying to, like, as a kid, North Alabama, guys, construction dorks, like, I'm the biggest dork that there is. Like, I love a North Alabama welder. As a kid, that's all I want to do is go to the shop and drive a forklift and get to weld and push the buttons. And now I get to be part of a company that's the consolidated of all. And, somebody asked me the other day, is like, ASC, like, I don't even know who ASC is. And why would you go there? And I was like, it's awesome to work for a company that has the combination of the product, but there's so much movement in the industry, and to be able to take equipment and the product together is awesome. And I think I draw a lot of experience from when I ran a fab shop for so long. Marsh and I were just talking the other day about what's the right joining method, what's the right process for the right application on the right project. So is that
my spec will tell me that. I don't get to make
but I think it's like, hey, like people are using different equipment in the shop. They're using different processes in the field. They're using different materials, like if it's plastic or whatever. And I think at ASC, what I want to do is I want to talk to customers. I want to understand what they need, and I want to talk to owners and understand what they're building and work together so that we create products and groups of products that are easy to install for the contractor, that are easy to build, like make for the manufacturer, and meet the need of the owner. So I think at the end of the day, if you really look at it, it's talking, and putting not just like, it's not just about making a cool new product, but it's also looking at the product that we have and putting them in ways that can be used easier. And I think that can be just as sexy as coming out with a whole new product.
Yeah.
But so I spend a lot of time. So when I was starting in the fab shop, I knew nothing about fab shop. I just knew that our fab shop manager changed like every year, and typically not in a good fashion. It was typically someone like, I'm done. And my dad finally said, oh, I have a child, you go. I was like,
You can't
okay.
quit.
Yeah.
You
Right.
can't quit. You live at home. And I remember, like, I reached out to a gentleman, Tom Field Sr. He was a sales rep at Reliable, and Bill Sisto, and he was one of our reps. And they taught me how to stock products. They taught me how to, make sure, I didn't have do inventory turns. Like, I learned from my manufacturers. Like, I learned from the guys in the field what they wanted to install. And then I learned from the shop, like, how can we make things differently? How could we package things differently? So yeah, what I want to do at ASC is I want to make things easy for the contractor, and I want to put the right solution in front of owners that meet their needs. Like, as buildings get bigger, like EVs are huge. How do we build buildings as big as they want to build, as fast as they want to build? Like, we're bringing different manufacturing back to the US for the first time in so long, and these buildings are massive.
Yeah. And the owners in those same JVs are so invested at such a high level that they care about that now. They never cared about that before, right? They were, to your point, Trent, earlier, like, I don't answer it, the specs do.
Right.
Yeah. Bullshit. Now it's the building. It's the owner. It's the throughput. It's what they need and the time frame in which they need it. I mean, a lot of these factories aren't opening for a while. Don't kid yourself. It's still a race to get open.
Sure.
And it's still more, if you look at the size of them, I mean, it's more labor than our largest mechanical contractors can have on multiple projects. So it's like, yeah, I can do one of those, but I can't do all the other work that I have to do. It's
Right.
more product that I'm pushing through my shop or through my distribution than ever before. And the ceilings are a little bit taller. The racking is different. So the amount of sprinkler heads that I need, or just the amount of lifts you need to put the men in the air to hang the pipe, it's different. And I think I preach it. It's partnership. It's, don't forget to get us involved early, because if we're not, you're not going to have stuff. There's domestic made product and there's product that we have to source, and the product that we source takes time, and the product that we build domestically, if you need a lot of it, we just need more time to build it. So the earlier there's a partnership, the better. And it goes down to sharing data. Like, we share a lot in conversation, but I think it's like, what do we show up to the conversation with? Like, let's not be afraid to share like details and actually talk, not in generalities. So like, I'm not afraid to ask a question. The only thing you're going to tell me is no. But I think like I ask for things more. Like, when I took over a BIM department, I was the first person that asked for the Revit model. Everybody told me they would not give it to me. And I said, did you ask?
Yeah.
And they said, no. Why would
Right.
that's offensive? I was like, I'm pretty sure that they're not going to be upset if I ask for it. Let's just ask. And then we were getting 50% within the first year. Like, now they said, hey, you own all, like, there's no liability, blah, 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 blah. But just share the data. Like, we'll figure it out. Like, it's
Still valuable,
don't think it's
even
going to
if
be
we-
held against
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Right,
it's always
right.
funny. I think the contractor always hoarded some of that stuff. Just, it was almost like they did it in spite of the vendor a little bit. It was like why do I have this massive database that I've put so much customization in? Is like, well, I have to spell it all out because the vendor will get it wrong if I don't have the exact, and then that goes back to the submittals, where it's like the submittals are between contractor, owner, and vendor. Like, the manufacturer is very much a big part of that. So I think it's cool to look at these like alternative new ways of like delivering that partnership, because like you said, it's now not like, why do you have to build 3D content that matches the papers? It's like, well, if you have the right partner, wouldn't it just be the same damn thing? And you can guarantee it would be the same damn thing. Like, I think that the contractor buries themselves, because of the ways they get burned, and they think of all the ways that the vendor is going to do it wrong. So they're like taking control of all this stuff. And then, but now you got to manage all that. Now you've got, like, what happens if something does change, and now you don't have the ability to switch that change. And somebody out there probably can help you with that. So it is
I
cool.
think we look a lot at what we did. I mean, we're human. We like to spend time and tell stories of, oh, when it went wrong. But, when did it go right? And I think having those types of workshops, like you mentioned, Nathan, like I went to Colorado, a couple of years ago, like downtown, and he had his workshop, and everyone had a whiteboard, and everybody out was like working on a problem set. It's like, let's do that. Like, I don't need to take you to lunch. I don't need to play golf with you. Let's take those 3 hours and let's work on the problem. And let's get the right people in the room. We'll make some salespeople upset, but not always your salesperson. Let's get the product manager in there. Let's get the PM in there. Let's get the field guy in there, and like, let's work through the problem. Like, why didn't it work? And why did it work too? So like, let's not just focus on when it went wrong, but let's have some good workshops, and bring in the equipment guy, bring in the PVF person, and just sit down and share. It's like IPD for case studies.
Well,
I think that's super important too, because you're opening those people's eyes to something that's bigger than what they're working on. I was trying to throw this together in my head about a way to get out, but a lot of the times when we go back to like the PIM and everything inside of a contractor, it's a lot of the reasons those tend to fail, or that mindset tends to fail, is everybody's so focused on project by project that they don't think about looking at all this data across their entire company. And it kind of gets back to, Amanda, you were saying too about getting people involved earlier. It's a kind of a comment that I would throw out every once in a while. It's like, yeah, maybe you're going to save 2 cents per elbow by hopping around constantly, but how many labor hours are you going to save if you just kind of standardize? Yeah, you're going to still want to shop around for the best price every so often, but make it a little bit easier on yourself.
Well, that vendor's going to gouge me if we do that, Travis. I mean, I can't.
What
I've heard
costs
it all.
more, that part or the person drawing the part?
But I think too, like, it is, and this is in every organization, if it's a manufacturer, a startup, a contractor, software provider, don't be too busy doing the work. Don't be a penny wise and a pound foolish.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the bigger process, look at the bigger picture. And I think we all know contractors and manufacturers and distributors that are doing that well. Not everybody does it. You have to have people, like my role, like it's more of a strategy role now. It's looking at problems and deciding on how we're going to approach those problems, and then other people go build and do the work. I am definitely removed, and that's something like I personally strive to like stay involved so I don't lose a little bit of it. But you have to create those roles. If those roles don't exist, then it's a problem. Like, we just know it's a problem because I don't know, like who still just does a 2-week look ahead? If you just look 2 weeks ahead,
That shit
like,
drives me crazy. Drives me nuts.
Like
if you can't plan 2 months, I don't have use for you. I don't know what, like 2 weeks, like
but I'm still here.
Jonathan,
2-week look ahead. 2-week look. No.
Jonathan, you remember when we had that conversation about? I think you're crazy. I think the world's farther ahead, and then you went, "Oh wait, I see what you're talking about." Trent, like half contractors, a 2-week look ahead is a stretch, and it's usually not right.
Which is crazy. But you have no ability to blame anyone but yourself if you can't plan past 2 weeks. So I mean,
I hear you, but to each of you, and Amanda, you sat in the seat as well, and I thought this was interesting because I'm an outsider when I came in, and everybody has that red file cabinet, right? It's your retrospective file cabinet. So I started going through the file cabinet and looking, and I'm like, wow, I see a lot of jobs. I see I'm missing a lot of jobs. I go look at the missing jobs, like, oh, those were all profitable. Why aren't they in here? All we're looking at is the negative.
Yep.
Why are we looking at the good stuff? Why are we figuring like, hey, let's keep not doing bad shit? Oh wait,
we're all post-mortem, no physicals.
Yeah, post-mortems, and you're like, wait a minute, where's
it's a culture. It's a culture thing for sure. I mean,
well, it's because we're so risk averse and we're beat up over risk. Don't make a mistake, and we don't look at what went well.
But do you think like and I don't know if it was Marsh, I can't remember who I just said this to, but I was just having this conversation yesterday or the day before, is like, I believe contractors are the riskiest people out there.
Yep, that was me.
You're super risky. Like every day you're doing an estimate on a project, and yeah, you have history and you have systems, but the project is different. You don't know the project exec for this project. Like that's a gamble. And like contractors at the end of the day, it's not like they're like making billions of dollars from every project. And so it's risk adverse, it's change adverse, not risk adverse. So I'm trying to come up with like what the new saying is. And we don't like to change.
It's not risk aversion. I mean, the good contractors understand the money is where the risk is. So the really good contractors will take on those complex, scary, risky projects because they're good at managing that risk. So it's not so much an aversion, but once you've bit off that chunk, then the whole problem from then on is like, okay, we bit off the chunk. Now let's just try to manage this as best we can.
Yeah.
Like
and I'll tell you, there's guilty players out there though. I mean, like it's not just the contractors probably do overreact in some ways, but there's some shady things that happen. I mean, at that bid level and at that contract level. I mean,
Sure.
I've seen plumbing and mechanical notes buried in a vertical transport drawing. I've seen and then you take this, they're like, well, did you look at the vertical transport drawings? It said you had, it's like, why in the hell would I mean, there's,
Yeah.
there is shady stuff that happens. And the only reason that ever would have been put in the bid docs that way is to get something out of somebody that they didn't expect. I mean, that's the only reason you would do that.
I think a lot of times it's just good old fashioned not knowing in the States too. Like
You
when
think?
you have systems, those documents are copied and copied and copied. And, I was dealing with a friend and they were on a project and it said, you will have head guards on any sprinkler heads in a mechanical space. And they came back and all of these utility closets, I think there's 100 of them. There were no head guards on it. And he goes, well, that's a mechanical space. Do you see? And they're like, that is not. They're like, well, on my drawing, it was. And it was just they didn't need them, but somebody had copied and pasted. I think they copied and pasted the wrong thing in the wrong way. And I think that comes back to tech.
Yeah.
And that comes back to if you look at specifications and, so one thing I look at specs a lot and I see products that ASC owns Grinnell in mechanical. We own the brand, but you will not find a box that says Grinnell on it. The spec rate has been going up.
That's interesting.
Interesting.
Who's writing them? But that shows you that somebody's copying something old. And that's where I think it comes down to putting information at the point of use and educating and re-educating, because stuff is just obsolete. One of my first jobs was 4-inch threaded galv. I can't even lift it up all day long. Let alone do I want to install 4-inch threaded.
What system was
it
that
was
for?
out there because nobody had taken it out.
Oh, that's a
Not that
sprinkler
it was the
system.
best joining process. It was a sprinkler system.
Do you guys think we're sharpening though? Because that question that I asked about the PDFs, trying to get rid of the PDFs, it used to be, hey, don't send real drawings to your job site because they'll be obsolete before you get there. Send PDFs. Well, I hate to say it, but 9 times out of 10, by the time you print a PDF and send, or you generate the PDF and email it, we move so fast now. It's obsolete. Yeah. And, I have contractors, you're talking about them making their own data. They're not making it off of the website. They're making it off of whatever published PDF exists. And those PDFs on fittings, they're not trustworthy. I mean, if you go to pumps, they're even worse. Pumps say right on them, don't trust our dimensions. And then they'll be like, we want signed off drawings. We get signed off drawings. On the signed off drawing, it says, don't trust our dimensions.
And subject to change without reason.
Pick the right page on that PDF. That pump or that fitting or valves especially has 47 options on that PDF that you're building your content off of. How do you?
Well, the best is I built a software tool to put a watermark if it had changed. That's outdated, but it still lets you print.
Yeah.
And you could still deliver that to the job site, but they knew that we didn't have time to fix it, so you better call. And one guy said, can we just put outdated on all of them? And we all laughed. And I was like, might as well.
I guess
It's part of our print engine.
It was better than the other guys saying you have to take keyboards away from people so they can't change things. I was like, okay. But I think that technology is changing. I think the generations are changing. That, Marsh, years ago, you said in one of your presentations, does anyone teach their team how to use their iPad? It's like, I gave you a $1,200 investment. I got upset that I thought you were going to watch YouTube on it, but then I never taught you how to use it for your job. So I think that the tools are now accessible. I think people want to use them. It's just, how do we make it easy? How do we make the training material? Come on, guys, don't create a product without a simple user like training. And I mean like simple.
Simple. Yeah.
If
Well,
I'm
but
not going to do it, nobody else is going to do it.
yeah, but I think it also goes back to, you said it earlier, like we used to get together and do other things, and now the stakes are higher, and we're not necessarily as interested in this outing or that outing as we are in getting a room and getting the right people and getting things done effectively. Meeting, like we can have a cocktail afterwards, we all love having one.
Yeah.
But I think, like we're seeing that those stakes are so much higher now that we have to get in the room, solve these problems, like the CDX type stuff. But also I think we're seeing it on a project level. I talked to a lot of project teams, especially, we haven't talked about them, but the general contractors have in those same JV projects. You're talking about general contractors that are JV'd together to carry the load, that are then working with mechanical and electrical contractors that are JV'd together. That's a lot of moving parts and pieces on $2.53 billion projects. They're like, we're not taking the team out for a skeet shooting. No offense. I still like doing it, but we can do that on the weekend. Folks, we have to get in the room and map this thing out. And general contractors now are just as concerned. And how are they going to get involved in the complexity of what a manufacturer is providing? Like, can a manufacturer even approach that group?
And I think we have to all take a little piece of humble pie and to realize that we don't know what everybody else does and why they do it. Like, we know through our lens. And if we're not in the room and we're not talking and saying, okay, what makes your company tick? Like, what are your objectives? And what are the processes to do those? Like, you have to share at that level, because I'm in conversations all the time, weekly and daily, where I'm just explaining, and where my background comes into play is I have the ability, from the lens of somebody that ran a fab shop for 10 years, that ran a trucking division that had semis and flatbeds, and I ran 800 pieces of equipment, like purchasing. I was on the job site. I was like overseas, manufacturing, software. That lens has helped me look at the problem differently. But I still have to ask people and say, like I asked Jeff the other day, like, why do you do it? How do you do it? Like, those are the things that we don't ask enough, because at the end of the day, we're all pretty specialized. And when you're specialized, that can create that siloed vision, because you think you know what they do because you've been around with them, but you don't always know, like, what does the GC do every day, all day long? Like, I know you from a coordination meeting.
Right.
So I think like that's something too, is like, when you sit in those rooms, you sit down and just say, like, how do you do it? Like, I don't know your pain point. Like, looking at manufacturing and coming from, so I started off my career selling fabrication, but we sold fabrication. We really just took orders. Like, we identified projects, we just called them up and took orders. We didn't travel around. And a lot of contracting sales isn't a lot of like road warrior. I came to a manufacturer and saw our sales team have to be in a car all day long, 5 days a week. And if you emailed them something, they're not going to, and it had to be on a computer to see it, they can't.
Right.
Like, it's not how they're going to look at it. You need it to be on their phone. And like, or you need to give them a tablet that's easy, but you have to realize they have like 15 minutes in between a call and a burger and try to find somewhere to like take a break.
Yeah.
So
and don't text and drive. Come on, like we
Yeah,
can
don't
right.
like,
Yeah.
Hey, look, I'm looking at my
Don't have the
mail.
laptop on the dash.
We think the tech has connected us way more than it really has. I think it's made us lazy communicators. And I think we've forgotten a lot of the back to the basics that aren't happening. And we take it for granted. We think that the software, all the channels and stuff, we think that it's being managed more than it really is. I think we're we're definitely embellishing just what some of this tech is really doing, and we're taking for granted that. And I think the tech is creating some of the silos that you're talking about in some ways.
It takes away what Amanda is pointing to. It takes away the opportunity for a lot of this empathy. Like if you're not actually having to deal with a person, you're just communicating through some tech tool. And obviously the industry has been set up before to be very competitive, so it's very hard to have empathy for someone that you quote unquote hate. But it has taken out some of that personal touch, that empathy that goes into it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a fine line between, I do believe in picking up the phone, but I also don't believe in always picking up the phone. So I think it's using the tools that you have and using those two tools in the right way. It's like how many people use Outlook and don't use to do and assign to do tasks, but instead send an email with 55,000 things that they have to do, but don't ever follow. They just expect the person to follow up on it.
Right.
But if you assign a task, you could see like, hey, I have this open, or Monday, or any, you could use whatever those systems are. But I think that there's like that fine line. It's like, hey, you have to have empathy. You have to understand what other people do, so you can be empathetic and understand that.
Yeah.
I used to always say, if you asked me for a report and I said I can have it to you on Friday, you don't know if it took me 40 hours or 4 minutes until that report is not what you wanted. And I say I can give it to you next Friday. Like how many times, because this is perfect for you, how many times has the model been signed off and you're like, I'll give you fab spools in a week. And they're like, what? Like you're going to take a week to just like put the pretty picture on a piece of paper? Like, yeah, that takes a lot of time. And I mean, like, that's what the industry over time is like. Now you've got a whole different suite of products that will spit them out in some fashion or not need them. But that was something that nobody had empathy for that detailer about, like how long. They're like, you're slow. It's your fault that I don't have my pipe. Yeah. No, it's the process.
Well, I think that process plus technology often makes people feel they're far more qualified than they are. We have, we have a process in an engineering firm that picks what is your means and methods to build a building and hands it to Trent. Does that guy who's probably the intern know what Trent should be building or how Trent builds or even the materials? No, he has no clue. So, and I see a lot with the task management of people assigning tasks. And like you said, Amanda, no idea how long it actually takes or what goes into it. So I think there's a lot to be, I think that's where technology comes in and sort of makes us dumber. Is it gives us the force multiplier on what we can achieve with little knowledge, but doesn't really give us a roadmap to how to get that knowledge for ourselves. So we keep using these, like, you have chat bots now and you have large language models and you can sound really smart really fast without actually being intelligent. And it's not like it's teaching you how to be intelligent. It's literally teaching you a process where you work with this smart piece of, software to sound smart. So I really, really think that empathy piece where you're meeting with the people, where you're understanding where they're at, where you can help them if you have a missing part is important, and getting those experts in that room. Because I am not an expert in almost everything. I'm like a jack of all trades where I know a little bit about like every little thing, but I'm just not I'm not
putting this into the universe. Anybody that is watching this and listening to this, Jonathan March is an expert at a lot. He makes you not feel good about yourself sometimes because he can do it all.
Well, that's just because he's mean. But
it's never so nice.
But I don't know. I feel like I go toe to toe with Jonathan. Jonathan, I'll take you. No, never mind. Actually, he knows a shitload more about most things than I do.
Oh no! I get to apologize to Jeff in 2 months all the time.
I'm giving you. You're all very smart guys.
Wait, you heard that here? He said I get to apologize.
We actually have it on the recording now.
Oh no, but it's the truth. I am very confident that I'm right until I'm wrong, and then I have to go apologize to everybody. It's like, oh yeah, dude, that was too far off.
But I think we need to tie that back. Is I had a mentor of mine bring me into his office once and say, Amanda, never apologize. You're a woman in a man's world. You have your father's last name. Nobody wants you. You can't lead with saying, I'm sorry. And I was like, thanks. I don't agree with you. I am going to continue to apologize when I am wrong. I am going to let people know that there are times that, you know, I needed that check and I needed to reframe my thought process. And it ties into like having those conversations and learning from others. And I think like that's what we need to do is we need to say, hey, it's okay to be wrong. And it's okay to stand on your soapbox, because some people cave too easy. If you are not passionate, you have to have a level of passion. Like, you guys probably can hear me from Chicago in your homes. I need soundproofing in my walls. I don't scream. I get excited. I move around. And I think that's what we need. And, you know, it solves problems.
I agree. Passion's big. I'm a firm. I don't know, for those of you that know me the exact same way, I get amped up. I get worked up. Oh, and all of you out there, your chatbot emails, we can read those and know that you didn't write that.
Yeah,
There's
it's pretty easy
in
to
it,
tell.
by the way. So, and maybe actually delete the little bracketed salutation that it puts in there, but maybe don't put that in the. People have got to get away from this.
The pro tip right there.
Learn to communicate,
I
people.
take your
Come on.
chatbot out of my meeting.
Dear bracket person.
Yeah.
Or insert name.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Come on. Learn to communicate, people.
I have a whole
Please.
run of these LinkedIn ones that they're doing now. They've figured out how to run LinkedIn messages with them. Jeff, I don't think you saw my last message. No, I don't think you realized I fucking ignored you.
If you're 20 years old, and you're relying on this to please stop, you're not going to get where you want to be by using chatbot for your emails.
And I will say for the crew, so that, you know, a couple people recently have actually written a LinkedIn message. They did it themselves. I could tell the difference. So you know what I went ahead and did? I went, you know what? I'm going to reward that behavior. And I let them have a meeting. And by the way, more than one of those people is on the contact crew coming up, because they actually were a human. Because if I'm ignoring you, I'm just freaking ignoring you, because I know you're a bot. Right, Trent? I'm with you. I want to write the anti-bot that picks up my LinkedIn messages, picks up my email messages, and is like, I'm sorry, insert fuck you here. I'm not listening.
Market explicit chatbot.
You make a lot of money on the explicit chatbot.
I would. We digressed again. How did we end up fighting the chatbot?
It's a communication thing. We were on topic. I mean, yeah, I think we've got to still maintain that human communication.
It goes back to the whole discussion around empathy and everything in the technology. You have to realize the technology is a tool, right? Yes. It's not going to do the job for you.
It's not replacing this, right?
Everything's a hammer, right? We have a friend who says that, right? Like in our world, everything's a hammer. Like, it's not all a hammer, people. Right? It's not always a phone call, Amanda. It's not always a digital email. It's not always a Slack message. Sometimes it's a Slack message or Teams message. Sorry, Microsoft, if you're out there. And
don't apologize to them.
Jonathan's already expressed his hate for Teams.
I steal it from Autodesk University years ago, when the tagline was "More, Better, Less."
Yeah.
And I love a good tagline. More, better, less. Like, we want to do more things. We want to do them better. We want to do them with less frustration. And tech enables it. It's not the 100% solution. But if you're fighting tech, then you're definitely, I believe, not going to succeed. Like, in one thing that we can learn, like a manufacturer can help a contractor, just typically from our size, is our sophistication of supply chain and our sophistication of business systems.
Yeah.
And what we implement on the operations side. And I think that that's something that like you have to embrace tech when you are that large, and you have to have systems in place. And you know, what's the right one, and picking the right one, and then maximizing that, and then going to the next one. Like, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. But I think like that's just something, is like having the empathy, having the communication, and then that system. Like you do have to have it. Like,
Well,
if you don't,
that's a really good
Can't
point
be
that I wouldn't.
competitive.
Yeah, it can't be competitive. But that's a really good point I wouldn't have thought of, Amanda. Is that, you know, we talk about, and I'm pretty vocal about the fact that we really don't have ERP in construction, right? It's because
Right.
we're really getting, you know, and starting to see in mechanical and others where they're starting to get to the point of they're really going to have to and need it. Well, in your world, in the mechanicals, y'all have it. So no better place to go. What's really important in an ERP? That you're not buying a part or a piece, but you're partnering and saying to ASC, hey, what the heck should we even care about in an ERP system, and what matters?
yeah. And how do you grow?
Yeah.
So know that growth plan. A lot of contractors are not the same size they were 5 years ago. You know, we have this, I think people have a doom and gloom a little bit over the last couple of years in the US about what the economy is doing. And I think we can all see our friends that have had record years and are growing and more complex. So talking and saying, where do I want to be? What are those systems? You know, I can't believe that, I mean, we're all about the same age, that we've gone through, what, 3 downturns or 2 big ones? And and you just see, like, you go big, you go small, but if you had an ERP system that was the right size and was, okay guys, and there's never the best one, like just pick one.
They all
There's no
suck.
perfect. There's no perfect.
There's
They all
no
suck.
perfect.
I-
They all have to be changed, but let's just but you have to have these systems. And I think that's where learning from people, and not, at the end of the day, we all have to get our product to the place when the person wants to use it.
Yeah.
We all have people issues. We all have desire to make more margin. Like, there are so many things that put us on the same playing field and are universal. Like, let's look to our similarities. And then if a contractor came to me, if a distributor came to me tomorrow and said, I need this data because it will help me do this, and I can do this for you because I have this data, I'm going to jump on it. And I think that's where we look a lot, is like, hey, I need this, but there's not, I mean, let's use the expression give and take. Like, I'll give you this if you give me that. And I think sometimes that's where we need to look at it from, is, if I had this, it might help me over here, so I can offset. We all have people. We all probably will say we don't have enough people to do what we need to do.
Yeah.
So if we work together, we can offset different activities.
I have to admit, when you guys talk about ERPs and people putting them in, I had a long time where I get sent the ROI for software along with the request to help someone implement. Never got an ROI on an ERP, not even once, not
Well, how do
even
you-
once, because the person that was making the
Yeah,
decision was the person that was holding the purse strings. Like,
That's
well, give me the
also kind
ROI.
of,
Tell me how you're going to
the only
use
thing
this.
that I'll throw out there with the ROI and the ERP and everything is there's the same comment I had before. It's like, until construction companies start to think about their company versus a project, right?
Yeah.
If you start thinking about, manufacturers produce widgets, okay. In construction, your widget's a building. Think that, like, we're producing buildings. And then look at from the global standpoint, but they are very and I understand why, because of the bidding process, and you're buying, you're not producing 1,000 cars to sell, and hopefully you sell 800 of them or whatever. But still, if you start to think of it as a global versus project by project, a lot of that stuff changes.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I go home and I have dinner with my dad and my best friend that are both contractors. And my dad and I still, 20 years after the first day I started to work with him, see things differently. Like, I do not believe that we're all so different. I think that, as you said, Travis, we're a company that we want to have good people, we want to have good culture, and we want to enable that, like, our people or our shareholders and our people, like however the company is set up, to be successful. And taking a step back and looking at what makes that company, because sometimes, how many times, I mean, in my past, have I been so focused on saving a project that's gone south versus just letting the darn thing go south and then not affect all the other projects that are going well?
Right.
Because we're pulling our best people from these other projects,
Yes.
and it goes for manufacturing or for VDC or services or whatever, or software. But like, how many times have you pulled your good guy from knocking it out of the park to salvage something that isn't salvageable?
Yeah.
Where if you just went to the person and probably said, "Hey guys, it's not going well.
You're going to take an L on this one."
Uncontrolled,
We're gonna take a
uncontrolled
loss.
variables, right? Yeah.
We got to take it out, baby.
There's a point where the A team has an F environment. I mean, yeah.
Right.
So,
Well, and I had to do this look up real quick, even for myself, because we all like to talk about Doug Smith from DSI, right? But you talk about ERP, the whole reason Doug can do it is because of Will McManus and his forethought at the time to implement an ERP system that would support all the shit DSI was going to do. And I didn't know that until I had him on, Will on, and then Doug referenced it. So I'm like, look, it's a foundation. It sucks. It's not fun, but it's a foundational piece that we got to do, right? Like, this is not fun. And it will actually tell you, to draw it to what you're talking about. It'll tell you when this L's worth the L, guys. It's time. Sometimes the mercy rule is in effect for a reason.
yeah, there's a point of diminished return. There's also a point of diminished gain. I mean,
and I think knowing like who implemented the ERP system or who's in charge. A couple years ago, I submitted for either NECA or the MCA safety conference. And my whole approach was, why should safety professionals care about BIM? Like, why? Well, I can tell you in the drawing department how many projected hours we're going to use. I can tell you when we're working at site. I can help you build out your safety plan. And, there's all these things that can be done by just talking to somebody different than you normally do. And I think that's something that's like, talk to the finance team, like talk to the safety team. And those individuals don't get the love that they should get. Because one, we can help them in their day-to-day, but they can help everybody else too. And don't forget about the payroll department and all this other stuff that, at the end of the day, look at the problem, look at everything through a different lens.
Yeah. See everybody's perspective and realize it's a business that has lots of things that need to operate. Right? You need,
payroll's the ultimate. They're the ultimate force multiplier. Miss a payroll and find where your team goes.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Miss a few hours on a person's paycheck and watch what happens. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Watch how they show up.
It cost you 30.
Well, it costs you 30, and then watch how they show up next week. It's going to take you 6 weeks of perfect paychecks to make up for that lost trust and confidence. So everybody takes it for granted, right? You get the paycheck in the bank account, you go on, but let's just take a few hours off of it, see how you feel. So
Right.
you'll start to have a respect for perspective, so to speak. So I'm sorry, Nathan, we owe you about $100 for this episode because
I'm
we're
not
using Nathanisms. And my glass is empty. And if we want me to be able to go take care of my kids and have a wonderful evening, then
That
I
doesn't
think
fit my agenda.
it's time for me to wrap it up and us to wrap it up. And Amanda, thank you so much for coming on and talking about the ASC journey. Where are we going to see you next out there?
What's next? HR and innovation in Orlando. So
Oh, cool.
HR in sunny Chicago in January, but
Yep.
then following it up right in Orlando. So I'm super excited for innovation. I think the
Wow.
innovation conference, having multi-trade come together and talk for 4 days is
And
my highlight.
I'll
Yeah.
be at AHR too. We'll compare beaches. Let's go to Lake Michigan
Yeah, we'll
and
go
check
to-
that beach out, and then we'll go to Orlando and we'll check those out too.
bring your special suit for that one. Let's just be honest. But
Well,
we
Jeff,
will
you gotta
all
go and wrap a gift for your daughter. Big one. She wants
Yeah.
big or small.
Hey,
But
are we
cool.
all so we're all at MEP, right?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll all
there's
be
a
there.
little teaser. Every dork and our guest will be at MEP Innovation. So, gentlemen, it has been fun to be back on the show and to be back with you and off the road. I'm stoked. Thank you guys for sitting down today and letting me take over the mic again. I'm sure everybody's tired of listening to me already. And with that, it's episode 74, Manufacturing Reality with Amanda Comunale from ASC Engineered Solutions.